Martin Welschof, BioInvent, CEO since 6 years. We'll come back to that, Martin. But for now, the show is yours for about 25 minutes, okay?
Very good. So then I just plow ahead. So again, welcome everybody. Good morning. Happy to be here. And I hope that everything will work. Yes, it does. And I will keep in mind that I don't flip too quickly because I know there's some delay, at least I was told so. So that is the forward-looking statement. And I would like to start with a quick summary of the company. So you probably know by now, so we are a Swedish publicly listed company based in Lund. We're currently around 120 people. We were clearly focused on immuno-oncology, and there very specifically on the tumor microenvironment. And in that context, we have now, as you can see here on the slide, 6 clinical programs ongoing that I will introduce you in a moment. And those programs we have generated completely in-house, so we are quite integrated company, which means we do all the discovery work, but not only this, we also do the manufacturing, formulation, and then at the end also clinical development. And the platform that we have used for that has been now validated in a number of partnerships, as you can see here. You see the names. The most recent one was with Exelixis, but we also had partnerships with Pfizer, Daiichi, Bayer, and a couple of others. And those companies, together with those companies, we also have a portfolio, which is of course not our proprietary portfolio. And if the time allows, we can maybe cover that at the end of my presentation. We are listed, as I said, in Stockholm. And being a Swedish company, we're actually quite proud that we have a very strong international shareholder base. As you can see, the names here. The largest owner is Redmile, US investor. Then Van Herk Investments, I think, is very well known because they have been quite active in the Swedish market. Forbion is another blue chip name, as is HBM, Omega, and then of course also high quality Nordic names such as AP4 and Handelsbanken. And then we also have Invus on board. We were quite active over the last couple of years in financing, such that we still have a good balance sheet. So currently we have liquid funds of roughly a little bit more than $90 million. And that gives us a very good runway until the end of Q1 2026. And on our way to that time point, you will see we have a number of value inflection points, which is very, very good. The platform, or at the core of the platform, we have something which is called Function First. And I will not spend too much time here, just to say this is a platform that allows us to screen directly on patient material, which means we have a very good and strong collaboration with the local hospital in Lund. They provide us with tumor material, patient material that we then use for our screens. And then from there, we identify new specific targets and antibodies that can be used for cancer therapy. And our major focus, as I already said initially, is the tumor microenvironment, which is very, very important because in the tumor microenvironment, a lot of things are happening that are good for the tumor, for the cancer, but not good for the patient. And then we try to intervene. So with that platform, we have generated, as you can see here on the next slide, this quite broad portfolio. And I will start on the left-hand side. You see always at the bottom, at the top, actually, the targets. So we are focusing on 3 targets. Number 1, TNF receptor 2, then Fc gamma RIIb and CTLA4. And those are all targets that are very, very important in the tumor microenvironment. And then around those targets, we have in both cases, in 2 cases, several programs. So for TNF receptor 2, we now have 2 programs in the clinic. 1808 now, which is in phase 2, 1910, where we'll disclose by the end of the year the first single agent data. And then Fc gamma RIIb, another very important target in the tumor microenvironment. There we have our lead program 1206 that we develop in non-Hodgkin lymphoma as well as in solid tumors. And then we just kicked off, and there was a press release a week ago or so, 1607, that we combined with pembrolizumab and ipilimumab. And then we have a collaboration with Transgene, where we have combined our proprietary anti-CTLA-4 antibody with their oncolytic virus platform, which is now also in phase 1. And what I will do now is go briefly through the various programs to give you some more details. So I will start with the TNF receptor 2 program. And before I go into the program in more detail, maybe just to let you know a little bit of background here. So we identified a TNF receptor 2 as a very interesting target structure in ovarian cancer. So when we screened on ovarian cancer, we identified TNF receptor 2 as a target that was specifically upregulated on a very important cell type in the tumor microenvironment, the so-called T regulatory cells. And that's why we thought this is quite interesting to pursue. And out of a couple of hundred different antibody candidates, we identified 1808 and 1910. And they have different mode of actions. 1808 is the program that we started first. This is now in phase 2. And 1910, basically, as I said, we have the first single agent activity data by the end of the year. On the right-hand side of this slide, you see the competition. So when we started the program, we were more or less alone. Now there are a couple of other companies also running after the target with different antibodies. But it's fair to say that we at least are 1 year ahead with both of our programs, and we also have the most complex program compared to all those other competitors. So which was, and I think to have competition is not bad because it also validates what you're trying to do, and that's also sometimes a good sign that you're not the only one pursuing something. So on 1808, the last data that we had, so we are currently developing this actually in solid cancer, and I come back to the solid cancer data in a moment, but also for a cancer that is called CTCL, which is a rare T-cell lymphoma. And there the latest data set that we have shown was that we, out of 4 patients that we could evaluate at the time point, we had 4 responses, which is actually quite unheard. So 3 really robust partial responses and 1 stable disease. And of course, it's very important to also remind your audience that all the clinical development that we do, and that's typical for oncology, is in patients that of course have received already the standard of care and do not respond anymore. And we are kind of their last resort. And those kind of patients to see this type of response means 4 out of 4. It's actually quite unheard and gives us a lot of strategic possibilities that we maybe can discuss later in the Q&A session. So a little bit more data than that we already have shown around ASCO. As I said, so we're not only pursuing the rare T-cell lymphoma, but also solid cancer. So this is, for instance, a case study, a 63-year-old patient with ovarian cancer, quite advanced, who has received 4 previous lines of treatment. And that patient, as you can see, had 1 target lesion of 25 millimeters and 2 larger non-target cystic lesions. And at the first post-treatment scan, we basically could show that this tumor was gone and no quantifiable tumor mass could be measured again. And this response has been confirmed. So a very, very impressive response. But we not only see this in ovarian cancer, we also see this in a cancer which is called GIST. It's a gastrointestinal tumor. And actually, this is a tumor where current immune checkpoints inhibitors show very limited activity. So this is from a 55-year-old male patient. And that patient, as I already said, has received 12 previous lines of therapy without any success. And in the most recent scan, we could basically reduce the total tumor burden by 61%, which is also a super outcome for this patient. So I think for 1808, what we're looking at is we have activity in solid cancer. We see a good activity in a rare T-cell lymphoma. And of course, goes without saying, the compound is safe, which is also quite important because very, very often developers are just looking for efficacy and forget completely safety. But I think as a cancer patient, you also want something that is not only efficacious, but also mild and has no toxicity. I think that's important. That's what we're trying to develop here. So just to give you the status where we are with this study. So this is a rather busy slide, but you can see that and all the data that I have shown to you now is single agent. So this is only the compound, nothing in combination, which of course makes it even stronger. And in the single agent, as you can see, if you look at the right-hand side, so we are currently focusing on those phase 2A cohorts, ovarian, then all tumor types that would be, for instance, GIST and lung cancer, but then also the rare T-cell lymphoma that I already mentioned, where we saw 4 out of 4 responders. We're also combining it with pembrolizumab because we saw preclinically that it was strong as a single agent, but also has good synergies with pembrolizumab. And there we now also in those 2A cohorts where we combine it to treat ovarian cancer, melanoma, GIST, and also CTCL. And then depending on the outcome of the combination with pembrolizumab, we might also then start part C, which is the lower bar here on this slide, where we combine it with then pembrolizumab and paclitaxel. But that's kind of a little bit depending on the outcome of the combination with pembrolizumab. Then 1910, as I already mentioned, so this is our second with a different mode of action, candidate targeting TNF receptor 2. And there we have now basically, as you can see on the left-hand side, finished the dose escalation as a single agent. And as I said, so we are thriving to inform the market about this data set by the end of the year. And then once this is out, and I can tell you that the dose escalation has been very successful, no toxicity, so very happy with the progress so far. And then we move into combination and also into single agent, where we then focus on non-small cell lung cancer and then also hepatocellular carcinoma. So this is also very interesting. But as I said, so this is obviously earlier. And the first data set should come out by the end of this year. Then switching gears a little bit to the other very important target in the tumor microenvironment, which is anti-Fc gamma RIIb. And there you, as you can see here on this slide, we have 2 compounds, 1206, that we're currently developing for non-Hodgkin lymphoma and solid cancer. And then we just kicked off 1607 in the triplet with ipilimumab and pembrolizumab. So this is a little bit on the target. This is the only inhibitory receptor of the innate immune system. So very important for the tumor microenvironment. I mentioned that we have those 2 different compounds, and I will start with 1206. And 1206, the latest data that we have shown, and 1206 we not only have as an IV, but also as a subcutaneous formulation. And this was the latest data set that we had shown for the subcutaneous formulation, where we saw out of 9 patients, basically 8 patients responding, which of course is also very good. And 2 were complete responses and 3 partial responses and 3 stable diseases. So very nice data set. And then this is what we have shown already earlier. This is the IV formulation, where we also saw a very nice overall response rate of 55%. And complete response rate of 35%, which is very, very good. And what is outstanding here really is that we see long-lasting complete responses, which means more than 3 years actually, which of course is also very important. And again, safety is not an issue. And what we're currently doing is we're developing this in collaboration with AstraZeneca, with their compound acalabrutinib. And this has just started. And this has a very nice positioning within non-Hodgkin lymphoma, because we expect a very high overall response rate, and we will have a super safety profile. And when you look into non-Hodgkin lymphoma, those are mostly elderly patients that don't tolerate any toxicity. And when you can give them an alternative to, for instance, CAR-T or bispecifics, which have a very good efficacy, but a very, very bad safety profile. And I think in our case, we are thriving for the same efficacy, but a much better safety. And this is according to our research that we have done, talking to clinicians exactly what they want. And the next data set here will be also by the end of the year, when we will provide the first glimpse of data to the market of this very interesting triplet study. So then the same compound in pembrolizumab. So as I said, we are not only going in non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but also in solid cancer. And there we also could show that it's well tolerated. And we saw during the dose escalation already some very interesting responses in melanoma and uveal melanoma, as you can see on the next slide. So this is uveal melanoma, a very robust partial response. Uveal melanoma is a very rare melanoma, but very, very difficult to treat. And there we have a very nice partial response and still ongoing. And then this is a complete response in melanoma, same thing here. So we're also quite happy with the performance of the drug in solid cancer. And basically here we also have introduced now the subcutaneous formulation. So going forward with 1206 in non-Hodgkin lymphoma, as well as here in the solid cancer study, we'll only use the sub-Q. And this has a number of advantages. First of all, it seems to be more efficacious than the IV. There is no toxicity related to the sub-Q, and it's much easier to apply because if you give IV, this is a 1 hour to 2 hours transfusion. Sub-Q is a 5 minutes injection, so it's much easier, much milder, and seems to be also more efficacious. So then, so that's 1206. And very briefly on 1607. 1607 is the second anti-Fc gamma R2b, and we have basically done the dose escalation in combination with trastuzumab, published this on the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium in 2023. We could show some first signs of efficacy and safety. And that was actually the number one target, because what we wanted to do is really to go into the triplet, where we combine it then with pembrolizumab and ipilimumab. And this is something that clinicians are thriving to do, because those are the two most potent anti-cancer drugs that we have at the moment, but very difficult to combine because of toxicity. And what we have seen preclinically, if we use in addition 1607, then we can reduce the dose of ipilimumab, which is the most toxic one of the two, and still get the same efficacy. And that's what we're trying to establish here. And we just kicked off that study. Then at the end, very briefly, before I come to the milestones for the remaining year and for next year, is anti-CTLA-4. And this is our collaboration with Transgene, where we combine our proprietary antibody with the oncolytic virus. And what we get through this is basically a very specific enrichment of the anti-CTLA-4 antibody only in the solid tumor environment. And we have published this. The study is ongoing. So we have done dose escalation as a single agent. We are now combining with pembrolizumab. And we had this poster at ESMO, where we also could show first responses. So this is also looking interesting. So that is basically the study design. The dose escalation on the left-hand side is completed. And now we are in dose escalation. So the dose escalation single agent on the left-hand side. And now we're in dose escalation in combination with pembrolizumab. So as I said before I stop, just the key catalyst for the remaining 2024 and then also 2025. So as you can see on the left-hand side, there are still 3 outstanding updates. So we'll provide an update by the end of the year regarding 1808, the phase 2A single agent data. Then obviously everybody is keen to see the first 1910 single agent phase 1 data. And then, as I already mentioned, the triplet 1206 plus rituximab and acalabrutinib also by the end of the year. So, those news should come soon. And then when you look into 2025, this also looks actually quite interesting. So many readouts. By mid next year, we will have further 1808 single agent data, further triplet data for 1206. And then also an update on 1206 in solid tumors that I briefly mentioned also here in this presentation. And then during the second half, 1808 combo, 1910, further single agent data as well as combo data. And then also at the end of next year, the first 1607 data, the triplet data that I mentioned. So I'm just, no, I think that's the presentation. So I think maybe I stop here and then we have time for Q&A.
I'll adjust the camera, Martin. My head got chopped off.
Oh. So I'm just trying to go back. So I think I stopped sharing. Is that true?
Yeah, you stopped sharing.
I did.
We see you. We might want to return to the presentation, I think, to look at some data. And with 6 clinical trials, this is something to look into. Okay. BioInvent on the Swedish market has been around a long time. It listed 2001, and it had a horrible year when the studies failed 2012. But that was before your shift, Martin. You came in 6 years ago. And looking at you now, it's rare to see not the big pharma company being able to pull off this volume of clinical trials. And look at your investor base, it would be an unrealistic dream for most other not big pharma companies. Can you tell us a bit about your 6 years and how this investor base took BioInvent to up till today?
Absolutely, happy to do so. So maybe I should start why I joined, because I think that is also very telling. So I was approached, roughly six years ago to be the new CEO of BioInvent. And actually at that time, I was very intrigued what I saw, because I saw 3 things. Number one, a company, yes, around for quite some time, but which also means that they have a lot of experience, especially in antibody discovery and development. And then has built over time this very comprehensive platform, that I mentioned also at the beginning, not only discovery, but also manufacturing, formulation, as well as clinical development. And this is something very rare. And normally, you wouldn't get investor money to do this type of endeavor, because it takes a lot of time, as you were saying, and takes a lot of money. But I think that was there when I joined. And then on the other side, what was also there was, besides those 2 points that I mentioned, very, very good science. So I saw that the team has done a lot of work around the tumor microenvironment, and they published this in peer-reviewed journals, which means their scientific work had quality. And then I thought, okay, with this platform plus the science, then you should have everything to attract also strong international investors, because this kind of thing you only can do with strong investors with deep pockets. And then, of course, you go for sector-specific investors. And basically, during my first probably 1 to 2 years, we had a lot of discussions with, Red Mile, for instance, with Omega, so with those US investors to get them, to educate them what we're doing, basically tell them about our plans. And then, of course, this is a longer process. It's not like that you go to an investor, you pitch, and then you get a lot of money. No, they say, okay, interesting, come back to me in a couple of months and show me what you have done. And what they want to see is basically, okay, those were the plans when we talked last time. And now we're here, so we really delivered what we have promised. And I think we did that for the first 2 years of my term. And then we got those big investors on board, and that were basically necessary to really have the funds to put those programs ahead. So it's basically a combination of the technology and experience that had been built at BioInvent over the years. And then I think especially I should mention there Björn Frendeus, who was the CSO, and his team. He obviously didn't do it alone, also had some time to work on first-class science to really come up with new ideas how you could interact with key targets in the tumor microenvironment, which is really key for immuno-oncology. And that's how basically we got those investors on board, got those programs rolling, and so far I think also we have been very, very lucky. because just to remind everybody, even if you do good preclinical work, good science, it doesn't translate one-to-one into clinical success, right? So normally you would expect a 50% attrition rate. That means every second program is successful. And so far, all our programs that we have started are safe and show first signs of efficacy. Nevertheless, of course, at some time we'll do some prioritization, and that will be based on data. So where we see the strongest data, then we also would push the most focus. But so far, so good, I would say.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. I can say this with some experience, having tried to get investment money to various things. That's hard, and what you've done is it's very, very strong, professional. So now you have your 6 clinical trials, and I have pulled up on my phone here a research report from one of your analysts, and your market cap right now is about 2.6 billion Swedish kronor, 250 million euros. And these analysts point out the biggest value, if they do a sum of parts, and especially with a company like BioInvent, that's quite a good thing. But they put out almost half the value to 1206, and then as number 2, 1808. Those two. Would you agree? Is there some sense to those two being the biggest value components?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually, I would say, probably for the main reason, because those are the 2 advanced programs where we have most of the data at the moment. And then, of course, it's much easier to analyze. I would say, I would agree, yes, 1206, 1808, those are our 2 lead programs, and both have shown, I would say for both we have shown that we have drugs because they have efficacy in patients, and both are safe in different settings, but I would agree. But I wouldn't disregard 1607 and 1910, they're just much earlier. So, in a year's time, it might look even different. You never know. It's all data dependent at the end. But currently, I would agree. Absolutely.
Thank you. So, do you think I could trouble you to pull up the key milestone slide?
Yes.
I will share that.
I will. Let me just find it again. I think there we go. Do you see it?
Yes, we see it.
No, even better, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Hey.
Perfect.
So these combinations with 1206 and the big pharma assets, who owns the assets that are in for the combination with 1206?
Yeah. So maybe also to give a little bit more background, because I didn't tell much about Merck. So we have basically, I have to count 6 such supply and collaboration agreements, 5 with Merck, 1 with AstraZeneca. And the structure is always the same. So basically, they means AstraZeneca and Merck, they don't own anything. So the only thing that they have is maybe a little bit earlier glimpse of the data. That's the only thing. But they don't have any rights, but they supply, in case of Merck, pembrolizumab, and in case of AstraZeneca, acalabrutinib. And besides the supply, in addition, they also give a lot of input in the clinical design, because obviously Merck is an expert concerning development of pembrolizumab, as well as is AstraZeneca for acalabrutinib. And but otherwise, it's 100% owned by BioInvent, the data, right? So they don't have any rights.
Okay. So number 1, when you wake up in the morning every day now, and for a lot of the investors for BioInvent, everybody's talking about partners. So I'll inject a question we got via email from a BioInvent investor here. They say, why have the expected data from the 3 projects, he says the 3 projects, dragged out to the last days of the year? And that's his question. And then if we make it a bit broader, partnering for 2025, if you could expand a bit on both those.
Yeah, I start with the data. So we, as you see here on the slide, we always said we will have an update by the end of the year for 1808 single agent, 1910 single agent, and 1206 the triplet. That was announced since a year, so nothing has changed there. And why it's not out yet? It's very easy. So when we do a press release, AstraZeneca and Merck has to see it and bless it. And that's where it stands at the moment. So everything is ready. We're just waiting for their feedback, and then it will be announced.
Yes.
And then on the partnering, maybe. So partnering, absolutely. So this is always high on our agenda. And I think with those type of agreements that we have, the supply and collaboration agreement, I think this is actually the first step, because you already have big companies such as AstraZeneca and Merck at the table, because they wouldn't provide, because the supply for pembrolizumab, just to give you an idea, that we get for all the programs, it's more than 10-15 million euros. So it's a lot of money. Maybe not for them, but for us in any way. And so that means they're really interested, which means once they see the data that they like, probably this kind of turns into different discussions. And that could be with both of the companies. And then, as you might have seen for 1206, for example, on the non-Hodgkin lymphoma side, we have the supply agreement with AstraZeneca. And on the solid cancer side, we have the supply agreement with Merck. So there could be even some kind of competitive dynamic at some time point. Besides those, of course, we talk to all the others. So we're preparing currently for JP Morgan, which is a very important conference, as you might know, which will happen in January. And we're already lining up lots of corporate partners, in addition to Merck and AstraZeneca. And maybe a general comment, nothing specific about BioInvent. So a year ago, or maybe a little bit more than that, but I would say roughly a year ago, large corporates as well as investors have been much more risk-taking. Now, though, investors, I'm talking about large sector-specific investors, as well as large corporate companies. Now they really want to see more clinical data. So if you, as we do, work on new clinical targets that have not been clinically validated yet, they would like to see more data. But I think in 2025, with the milestone that you see on the right-hand side, we should be in a very good position if we keep the same data trajectory that we're currently seeing to strike a large collaboration. Absolutely.
Looking ahead, I mean, these are still small numbers, and if we could expand a bit on the coming 3 to 5 years, it looks like we will hit 2029, 2030 before a BioInvent cancer treatment is on the market, selling as a treatment. So that's 5 years. But you have so many projects and successful partnering already. So if we use that as a base, the first question would be, is 2024 your peak negative cash flow year? Will you spend less money, lose less money going forward?
Well, that depends, of course, entirely on the data that we're generating. But what I can say is basically, just to repeat what I said before, I think we should be in a position, keeping in mind the same data trajectory as we see it now, next year the same, to strike a large deal. And when I talk about a large deal, so with a triple-digit, small triple-digit million, triple-digit US dollar upfront. So that's what I'm talking. And then, of course, it depends what we do with those programs, because for the solid cancer, I would say it's fair to say, at least this is our current outlook, that we definitely would partner, and we would follow a little bit the role model of Genmab, what they have done, Jan van der Winkel in Copenhagen. So basically, not always doing straight out licensing, but maybe also maintaining some rights such that you can also participate in the value generation further downstream. And then we might have an indication, and I mentioned it during my presentation, so we're still looking into that at the moment. But CTCL, this rare T-cell lymphoma, where we saw 4 responses out of 4 patients treated with 1808 as a single agent, this actually could be also an indication, again, putting as a basis that we see the data coming out like this continuing. Then we could actually consider to run our own pivotal study. But that's something that we're currently looking at. And that's also something that, of course, will entirely depend on the data that we will generate. But that is a possibility. So what I look at when I look at our platform, so solid cancer, definitely partnering, because those has to be very large studies and you have to do it with a partner. But a small orphan indication such as CTCL, this could be also something that BioInvent could proceed, at least in the pivotal study, by ourselves.
And talking about how big the studies need to be for a treatment to be on the market, before it hits the market, it has to be approved on a study that, can you give us some numbers? We're talking about 200, 300 patients?
Yeah, so for CTCL, since this is an orphan indication, and again, for the audience, keep in mind, this is still early days and we have to generate more data. But if we keep the same profile as we see it at the moment, I think we probably could convince the regulators that we could run a study between 200 to 300 patients, and that would be the pivotal study for that indication.
Okay, thank you. Can we lose the screen share a bit, Alan, and we'll take some questions from the investors on site.
Just try to go back.
Hi, this is Rutger Smith. I followed BioInvent for at least 20 years. I wonder, in those combos that you have with Merck and AstraZeneca, I mean, the natural thing is, of course, that you strike a deal with them. But for another company to strike a deal with these combos, I have some difficulty to understand what they would see in doing a deal with a product from you, and then they sort of market for Merck and AstraZeneca as well. I mean, another company can not pay as much as Merck and Astra should be able to do. That's my point.
Yeah. There you have to differentiate it a little bit. So when you look at 1808, for example, there we have not only the combination with pembrolizumab, and we didn't show the data yet, so it remains to be seen how interesting that is. But the data that I've shown to you was single agent, right? That was just 1808 as a single agent. So that could be super interesting to any company, basically. And then when you think about, maybe before I go to Astra, another comment. So obviously, pembrolizumab is one type of anti-PD-1 antibody, but there are now generics that are coming along. So if you generate, let's say we see interesting data, you could very much envision that also another company that has another anti-PD-1 antibody could be interested. Yeah, but obviously you're right. If we see strong data, let's assume we will see very strong data with 1808 and pembrolizumab, then it would be very natural for Merck to do a deal, because they have to do something in order to defend their kind of pembrolizumab universe, because patents are running out, and they need to think how they can maintain a dominant position. So I think it would be absolutely natural. If we see strong data, then Merck will take it. I'm 100% sure about that. The same with AstraZeneca. This is even a little bit more specific, but AstraZeneca, the compound acalabrutinib, you also have a BTK inhibitor at Beijing. Also very good, same type of compound. So we could also basically substitute, let's say we generate interesting data with acalabrutinib. We could think that you would generate the same data with another BTK inhibitor as well. So it's not necessarily only then aiming at AstraZeneca or Merck, but obviously it would be natural, because for them also acalabrutinib, so which AstraZeneca, just read an article that came out at ASH, they really have to do something there also as well to beef up their acalabrutinib sales. So they would need something. So it would be very natural, but it's not only that you then absolutely already married or in bed with those companies, not at all, because they're alternatives to pembrolizumab and to acalabrutinib. Same type of compounds, just a different brand basically. But obviously we can't combine and run partnerships with all the companies. That would be not feasible. So we have to focus, and that's what we always do, on the best one in the market. And the best PD-1 in the market is still the one from Merck. And the best BTK inhibitor in the market is still that one with AstraZeneca.
Anyone want the last question from the room here? Because time flies. I'll finish with two things. First, to all the investors for BioInvent, this is complex materia and quite fantastic and rare even. But it's a lot to digest. What helped me a lot is the Red Eye analyst report that is open. So you can download that. They have this sum of parts of what Martin and his team are doing, and they put numbers on it and percentages, and so there you could come in and get a better understanding, because this is high risk, high reward. You can make a lot of money on BioInvent. You could also lose a lot of money, of course. I have one last question that's relating to a later presentation here on ProHearings, but you have any famous last words to us, Martin? Christmas and all?
Well, I hope that everybody has a good Christmas, of course. I'm currently in Germany. Actually, I just had become a grandfather just a week ago, so I'm here with my daughter. So that will be quite nice, but I'm still working, so there's still a couple of things to finish for the company, and the 3 updates that are still coming. So that will be a nice closure for BioInvent of this year.
Thank you. My last kind of off the BioInvent point question is, we have here on ProHearings, we have a ProHearings Lookout, and now it's Christmas and it's 2025, it's a new year, so it's even more extravagant than it usually is. And one of the subheadings for this Lookout for 2025 is Ozempic fixes everything. It's you know, not just being overweight, it has a positive effect on Alzheimer and diabetes and many things. And actually, my older sister is a doctor. Even she was head of a clinic in Örebro until a couple of years ago, and I remember talking about this. She said, overweight is higher risk everything. So now my question to you, if Novo Nordisk in Denmark and Ozempic and the other competitors on these weight loss drugs fixes it, and the world eliminates, everybody gets their optimum weights, how much will that reduce cancer?
So there will be some reduction, but I can tell you, I know a lot of non-obese people with cancer, right? So it will reduce parts of it probably, but cancer will not be fixed by fixing overweight, unfortunately. If it would be that easy, that would be perfect. I would be happy for everybody if that would be the case, but unfortunately, that will not be the case. So cancer is still something that we have to deal with, and more than ever, actually, because every third person will at one time of his or her life suffer of cancer. That doesn't mean that they have to die from it, but at least they will have it. And I'm sure that in the audience that every family has a member with cancer, and they're not all obese, unfortunately. So so there will be still the need for good cancer therapies.
Thank you, Martin. Merry Christmas to you and your granddaughter and your family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.